Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Dan and hope you're all well. And it is that time of the year again. Yes, just after Dragon Month comes Tolkien Reading Day, a special day for many and one that is especially so to us Tolkien tubers. During this most important of days, we tend to compile a massive playlist to entertain one and all. This year's theme happens to be adventure and travel. Here at the Brothers Crin, the focus of our video is to be Tuor's travels before his arrival in Gondolin. Tuor's journey was one that began to an extent before he was even born, as his mother Rian traveled out from Dorloman in a desperate search for her husband Huor. Huor having passed away in a battle of the Nirnaeth Arnodiad due to a poisoned arrow to the eye. And how did they know it was poisoned? Did someone come around and test it to see if it really was poisoned? Anyways, it is said that Rian did indeed find her husband, and that she laid herself over him and died of grief. As a Tuor, he had been committed shortly after his birth to the care of the elves of Mithrin, elves who were Sindarin by nature, and thus of the kindred of the Thingol's Doriath elves. Specifically, Tuor was given into the care of Anel, a veteran of the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, Anel being the one who had conveyed to the newborn mother that Huor had fallen in the said battle, with Anel taking up the role of foster father for the son of Huor, so that he played a similar role to an extent that Thingol played for the cousin of Tuor, with the difference being that Anel didn't have a wife and doesn't seem to have ruled over a large group in marked contrast to Elu. It is said that when Tuor was still young, a portion of the tribe of the Mithrim elves traveled to the caves of Androth in the hopes of finding refuge from the rapacious Easterlings who had invaded and raided deep into Mithrim. But this was not to be a permanent solution, though. It was when Tuor was about 16 years old that his foster father resolved to venture farther to the south in the hopes of finding a more permanent place of refuge. Unfortunately, though, a large force of Easterlings and orcs discovered them en route and slaughtered the majority of the followers of Anel. The destination of the followers of Anel was the mouth of Sirion, as it was believed to be a place of safety. The road as said though was nowhere near as safe. Tuor himself was sadly captured and enslaved when he refused to flee and abandon those he had come to love as his own. Enslaved by Lorgan, the usurper of Hurin, who had taken up the lordship of Dorloman, Tuor could not have found much comfort in living in his family's traditional home. Humiliated, he was to endure 3 years of slavery to the brutish and cruel Easterlings who had unjustly invaded Dorloman. The time with Lorcan was likely amongst the worst of poor Tuor's life, as they well knew who his kin were. Under other circumstances, he might have stood to inherit the land of Hurin. His torment was to last until the Easterlings made the foolish mistake of sending Tuor out on an errand in the woods, which was doubtlessly one of their smarter actions. Tuor, though, slew his guards and escaped to the caves of Androth, where he was to dwell for the next 4 years. During this time, Tuor slew many orcs and Easterlings, as he lived the life of an outlaw, a life he swiftly tired of, as he sought to improve his lot from this macabre living to one better suited for a kinsman of the legendary Hurin. Searching during this time for the Gate of the Noldor, through which Anel had sought to escape Hislam. This was near the arid Loman, with the gate being known also as the Anon Gelith. As mentioned, at the end of these 4 years, Tuor was to be given a sign by the great Vala Ulmo. It was Ulmo who had long ago chosen Tuor as his instrument and a means by which the Noldor of Gondolin might be saved. It was he who had encouraged Turgon towards the city of Gondolin, and he who had warned not to grow too attached to it. Tuor was met by Gelmir and Arminath, both of whom were messengers of Círdan seeking Gondolin. It was they who showed Tuor the gates and they who escorted him through the mountains. It was in the year 495 of the First Age that Tuor passed Nevrast and was to be the first man to set eyes upon the shores of Belagare. He would not be the last to see it, nor would he be the last to be stricken by instant love at first sight towards the great sea. The sea longing that gripped the mighty warrior was unlike any other that had ever gripped any mortal man hitherto this moment. Overawed, he stayed until the subsequent autumn, and only left after receiving another sign from the majestic Ulmo. The sign in question was that of 7 swans heading south. The swans, for their part, were to lead him to the abandoned city of Vinyamar, at one time the settlement of Turgon, before he had left for Gondolin, with it being Vinyamar that was the first establishment of the Noldor in Middle-earth, built with stone. The population was primarily Noldor elves, with a healthy amount of Sindarin there also. Built near Nevrast, along the slopes of Mount Terrace, it had, as said, become abandoned centuries ago, when Ulmo had encouraged Turgon to abandon it. It was there in Vinyamar that Tuor was to discover a swan shield, armor, and a sword which he took up. It was during a storm that Ulmo was to appear before Tuor in his full glory, and was to command him to make his way to Gondolin. The morning after Varanwe was discovered by Tuor, shipwrecked along the coast of Beleriand. After this fateful meeting, Varanwe was to guide Tuor through the mountains to the city of Gondolin. In this way, Tuor, before he had set foot in Gondolin, became one of the most well-traveled men in all of Arda and the history of the First Age. Most of all, these travels were important in how they shaped Tuor into the man he was to become. Mighty wise, one could regard his journeys as an inward journey, one which showed his evolution from child to man. A child, vulnerable and helpless, he had to seize control of his own destiny, doing so by slaying those guards who kept him restrained and helpless to the whims of fate. As an adolescent, he sought the safety of the caverns, perceived to be his buckler against the world. But even this was no guarantee, while his search for the Gate of the Noldor could be regarded as him seizing control of his own destiny, grabbing at life and seeking to make his own way in the world, as all grown men do.
What is more is that during this part of his tale, Tuor serves more, it seems, as the warrior archetype in his fullness. That is to say, as a valiant hero fighting for liberty, and then later to defend others from the forces of evil and darkness. His story being reminiscent of Robin Hood and of Sir Gawain in some ways, as he battles for that which the Scots might say, no man gives up save with life itself. It can be said that my previous statements in prior videos about Tuor being the lover archetype is seemingly at odds here, but I'm not wrong, I think, in my original assessment, as there are 2 factors to consider when it comes to Tuor here. One is that a character in different tales may serve in a different kind of role. For example, Odysseus, typically portrayed more as the magician archetype in such tales as the Iliad or its immediate prequel stories, serves in some stories such as those involving Circe more as the hedonistic shadow lover. And there is the case for more modern audiences of an anime persuasion, Ashitaka from Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke, who is depicted throughout the early part of the film as a warrior. The thing about an archetype, though, is that they are the primary function or nature of the character, and not their only one. So that though Ashitaka is more the lover, given his relationship with San or Princess Mononoke, relationship being the most important part of the film. And Odysseus, for his part, his principal role is as a trickster of sorts in most tales. They can, however, fulfill the role of warrior or lover, respectively, depending on the story. Or to use a Lord of the Rings example here, there is Gandalf, who is also a sword-wielding hero in some scenes, for example, just as he is a staff-bearing magician, who has as a primary duty to inspire the people of Middle-earth to fight for their liberties and lives against the oppressive darkness of Sauron. The second major factor with Tuor is his important function within the overall legendarium, that of fathering Earendil. He is evidently a father archetypal character in that he fathers a great messianic hero, arguably the greatest of all the First Age heroes, and one who plays as pivotal a role as Aragorn in the Third Age, and to an extent Ar-Pharazôn in the Second Age, respectively. Being the lover in the Fall of Gondolin story, Tuor's role, though, as warrior seems almost downplayed in some of Tolkien's stories, so that one could almost forget that before his arrival in Gondolin. He was actually more of a Robin Hood type character, as previously mentioned. Because of the importance of his love story with Idril, and how crucial she was in the escape from Gondolin, and how Tuor fought for Turgon and her, one could well be mistaken for thinking that it was within Gondolin that Tuor first picked up his knack for sword fighting or axe wielding, when in reality it was likely Earendil who taught him to fight, and life itself that mentored him in war. Frankly, Tuor's principal nature is indeed that of the lover, and his principal role is as a father, but one must never forget his secondary nature as that of warrior. These early days, just as Aeneas from classical mythology fought throughout the Trojan War as a major captain, this doesn't necessarily mean that either of them are anything other than the lover archetype, though. As in the case of Aeneas, who is most famous for his relationship with Dido and Lavinia, respectively, and his fathering of two sons of extremely great importance in Roman mythology, one cannot simply forget how he has to fight for Troy, and then later for the hand of Lavinia, just as Tuor must fight to save Idril, so that Tolkien is directly mirroring Aeneas' arc and character in the tale of Tuor, if in a sneaky and very creative manner. This is not to say that Tolkien is uncreative, as there are distinct differences between the two characters. It is just that both are lovers who father great heroes, and whom are sons of notable figures, Venus and Huor respectively, with the two of them essentially being the forefathers of great civilizations in the form of Numenor and Rome, so that they play an integral role as the lover, but also with their side nature of being the warrior who is willing to defend his wife and son. It is primarily in defense that Tuor fights, and thus fulfills his role as the lover, as the lover is one who will primarily fight to defend his lover and his children, whereas the warrior takes the battle to others, such as Gawain does when he goes off to fight in defense of the honor of various maidens, or in defense of his king's honor, often taking the battle to others rather than letting the battle be brought to him, or to the king's court, or to the ladies' houses or estates.
And it is here where we leave you off, as this video was never intended to examine Tuor in Gondolin or afterwards. So that in mind, once again, happy Tolkien Reading Day. Enjoy the other videos in this excellent playlist, and happy reading, my friends. And don't forget, if you enjoy these videos, to smash like and subscribe buttons with all your force, as though you were Morgoth seeking to bring down Fingolfin.